Hey.
How is it going? Hold on. How are you?
I'm okay. Sorry for being late. It was another adventure out of Bethlehem, this time 1.5 hours sitting at a checkpoint, and then a ridiculous conversation with a soldier at the checkpoint. So just getting in now.
Yeah, there's so much to get in background. Actually, I should further also ask, where are you right now?
As we speak, I'm sitting at my desk in East Jerusalem.
Got you. And so tell me about this. Tell me about the checkpoint. What happened
Well,
there? Because the thing was, you hit me just before we were about to talk to say, "Yo, I'm at a checkpoint. I wish you could have seen that, but I'm in a checkpoint now. I'm so sorry." Which I'm not going to complain about that. But yeah.
it's been a well, it's been a particular couple of months, and I think
Mm,
anyone the proximity to what's happening in Gaza, it's very close for Palestinians. There's so many people that have family members there or close friends. My daughter's best friend lost 9 family members in one night.
jeez.
And what's horrific is that some of the ones died actually during the rescue, during trying to
Mm,
pulling them out from the rubble. So it's been an intense couple of months, but journalistically, personally, this week we were doing a story on the cancellation of Christmas, Bethlehem, which has, as I'm sure you know, a rich history. It's considered to be the birthplace of Jesus, and
mhm.
both for believers, spiritually, but also just practically, economically. It's Christmas in Bethlehem is huge, but they've canceled it this year in solidarity with what's happening in Gaza and an inability to celebrate. And so I've been doing a sort of political unpacking, emotional unpacking. What does
Yeah.
the cancellation of Christmas mean in Bethlehem? And the first night, which is when we first spoke to each other on voice notes,
Right.
you couldn't, because I've been going in and out of Ramallah and other West Bank cities, but I'd been hearing that Bethlehem was closed. And I was like, it can't be. It's actually very close to Jerusalem, and it's a very peaceful city. There's not a militancy there. I just thought, why would it be more closed than Ramallah? But it was nuts. Like, we couldn't get out. We tried every checkpoint, and then the hotels were all closed because this just completely at a standstill economically, and it's
Wow.
such a depressing place. And then just to share, I entered one hotel trying to find a place for us to stay, and I walk in and it was like The Shining. It was like this chandeliers and marble, and the only thing on in the darkness was this TV on a stand, a makeshift TV, makeshift stand in the lobby, and it was showing news of Gaza. It was eerie.
Oh
It was just
man.
this giant echoing of, and then and then it turns out there was a security guy kind of hidden on the couch and was practically in tears. No, we can't give you rooms. And then anyway, yeah. So getting out of Bethlehem is crazy right now.
That was a lot to start with. And thank you for starting with that. No, no, I mean, I'd love to back up a little bit because what most people probably don't realize is this is the first time we've ever spoken. I've never seen your face. You've never seen my face. We've only heard each other's voices as we're talking about scheduling. That's it. So even for my benefit, um, could you introduce Tanya? Could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, just launched in there, didn't
Yeah,
I?
no, that's great. That's the preview. That's the preview. But for the benefit of chat, for the benefit of me,
My name is Tanya Habjouqa. I am half Texan, half Jordanian. Minority group from Jordan. We're Circassians. Uh, and I have been covering Palestine since late 2009. I have 2 Palestinian children that motivate a lot of the work that I do in terms of my personal documentary work and books that have been created and are being created, often thinking about the narrative of who they are that isn't represented visually. That's a big motivation in my work. And lastly, just to say, I'm primarily an anthropologist. That's how I think. I think in metaphors and short story. I'm obsessed with short stories. Raymond Carver. That's how I try to visually illustrate. But ultimately, I'm constantly thinking as an anthropologist in how I dissect and play with narratives, bring ideas forward.
I love that you refer to yourself as half Texan, specifically
You know
Texan.
Texans, right? You know people from Texas.
I was
Texans are Texans.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that this is a very Texan thing. Yeah, Texans are very particular people. So yeah, so we said Texas is another country that's adjacent to the United States. That is an accurate that is an accurate statement. That is an accurate statement. Favorite Texan hip hop artist. Favorite hip hop artist from Texas. Who you got?
You know, it's I did my undergrad at UNT, which is one of the most musical places on
Mm,
earth. And back then, I was actually dating one of the maestros from the Ga Ensemble, but they kind of they've disappeared. Music used to be the forefront of my life. I mean, you used to
mm,
walk down the street, and there would be competing house parties, and you would choose which party you went to based on the music that was coming out.
yes.
But oh God, I miss that. I have been in the Middle East so long now that I can't tell you who my favorite. I'm like super old school with the hip hop that I
No, that's
love.
okay.
I love Tribe, Roots. I love all that kind of. But I know that's in a particular time.
That's all right.
So
Can I make you jealous and say that I got to interview Bun B once?
yeah, you can. You can make me very jealous. What was that like? What was the was there awe? Were they humble? That's the thing is like it's so disappointing when you meet someone that you revere
Yeah.
that isn't humble. So many times a lot of artists aren't. Like what was that like?
No, but so I mean, this is all in Houston after immediately after the murder of George Floyd. And 'cause you might know this. So George Floyd showed up on a couple of screw tapes. Cuz he was a rapper also. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I went back to his old neighborhood and let's see. There were a few people there who, I could rattle off names. You'd recognize them. But Trey the Truth was there, and Bun B happened to be there. I wasn't planning on talking to him either, but he just happened to be there. But he was very cool. He was very cool. He just he was extremely he was what I really appreciated about him was he was extremely real with me. He was telling me one of the things that really stood out to me was he said basically there's a corner store that is in the neighborhood. There was a big mural of George Floyd on the wall there, and everybody's coming by and leaving flowers and things like that. And he said something like, if this was any other time, you couldn't even be here.
Wow.
You couldn't even be here because the block is that hot. And like if somebody doesn't know you and you look, would something bad happen every single day? No, but he was trying to impress upon me, look, this is a dangerous area, but the fact that everybody is just like outsiders are just walking around, milling around, taking pictures freely, and nobody's asking them questions. Where are you from? Who are you here to see? That is a testament to how many people truly love George Floyd. That was what he was saying, and I thought, okay, wow, because he didn't know George Floyd personally, but he knew the area well enough, and he knew the general just vibe of the place to be able to tell me that. But the fact that he was so forthcoming with that, I thought was really cool. Yeah,
You know, it's crazy when you were saying that story, it just reinforced this idea I always have, which is that Texas and the Middle East is kind of there's so many parallels and like
really.
that's yeah, well, there's the hospitality and the rawness and the realness and the goodness. There's that,
Mm-hmm.
but then there's also the no doubt the ugliness and the racism and all the other elements. And the fact that you have to code switch and that certain neighborhoods, why are you here? Why are you? And then of course police and there's so many parallels in how you have to move.
Yeah.
And which Texas, it depends on, you know, you've got the minorities, you've got people that are treated a certain way. I mean, there's so many parallels, but
Mm-hmm.
then there's also the I think for some settlers, for example, there's this sort of cowboy and Indian already problematic genre, sort
Right,
of
right, right.
fantasy. And
Mm.
like actually during this in the first couple of weeks when there were more airstrikes on Tel Aviv, it's been quiet for more or less quiet for the last couple of weeks in Tel Aviv. I think there was an occasional, but there was one on the highway, and we pulled over, and cars just pulled over. You could hear the sirens, and you didn't know what was happening, and so people ran and they jumped in the dirt under a tree, and I happened to just fall in the dirt next to a father who was holding his kids, and we were kind of sitting and listening to the very eerie sounds. And the guy said, where are you from?" This question. I just got at the checkpoint. "Where are you from?" And we're sitting there, and I said, "Texas." And he goes, "Oh." And he went like this. He did like the finger guns. He goes, "Same." And I was like, "Same, but different." Like, yeah.
Wait, comparing airstrikes to Texas cowboy,
I
is
think
this what we're talking about?
I think he's thinking like just the fact that you need guns, the fact that there's this. I can only read into it because we parted ways when the sirens went. We didn't unpack it, but it's
Yeah.
not the first time I've heard that. I've heard that from cops, from settlers, from there's this idea of this sort of understanding, oh, this is what we have to put up with, the need for security, all of that. The idea that we're and they're not wrong. There are elements. That's not my Texas. Just like the Palestine that is misrepresented is not my Palestine. So that
Mm.
idea of this with I can't deny it exists, but that's not my Texas.
Man held up the finger guns for the to say Texas, just like here. Wow. That is that is incredible. The hospitality thing totally makes sense. I'll tell you one of mine also from that same experience, but I'd love to tell you to tell me more about it, because during the same interview, so it's hot, and we're actually sitting in front of George Floyd's old house. It's been boarded up, it's abandoned, but we're kind of sitting in the shadows, but it's still really hot. This woman comes up, and you can just tell by the way she comes in and everybody steps aside. Everybody here knows her. And I talked to her afterwards. Her name's Mama Nell. We gave her a lower third, because she walks in, interrupts the interview. Camera's running, mic's running, doesn't care. Walks up, reaches into the bag, because like I said, it was a corner store, reaches into the bag, hands us some waters, and just, "I'm happy you're here." And just hands everybody water. She maybe knew who she probably knew who Trey was. Because everybody knows Trey. Everybody recognized Trey. Um, and Bun probably, she doesn't know me. I've never been there before. I'm a total stranger. Hands all of us waters, and then leaves. She just wanted to make sure that we were hydrated. That was it. And she went to the store, bought ice cold waters, and brought them to us. I know you've got a million like that.
The Texas I know. That's my
Yeah.
Texas. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds right. And that sounds like that's what would happen here.
Mm. What? So you've been, and I also like that you referred to yourself as an anthropologist. That's sort of my background too. I did kind of cultural anthropology. What has been, this is a big question, I know, but what's been your experience recently? Let's talk about before the war.
Before the war, I was,
This one.
before the war, journalism has really taken an economic hit in the last few years. And I've
Mm,
always been a freelancer. There's freedom with that. You have less regulations of what you can and can't do.
mm-hmm.
And I like very much that. But it was easier before when there were more assignments. But then things had got pretty dire. So I actually had to take COVID really we took a hit.
Yeah.
Um, so I actually took a job doing investigations and research for a UN agency for a while, and have been working on my book. So that's where my heart was. Is I also narratively was exhausted before the war.
Mm.
And I went to New York this summer with the plan of, I was the grandiose notion of working on a Guggenheim grant, but in the end, I just took edibles every day and went to a tree, like stared at this tree because I was, to be honest, narratively fucked up and exhausted, personal
Mm.
things as well. This place, the constant ugliness and heartbreak that you're documenting,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's where I was at. I got back in September, and it was like, okay, it's time to finish this book and reconsider. I was looking at doing a PhD in anthropology. I was looking at, like, I was like, I had to reinvent myself. Journalism isn't. I'm not surviving.
Yeah. What was the book
I was
about? Tell me about the book. What's the book you were planning on writing?
It's called well, it's primarily photographic,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of like there's a lot of research from healers, from prison letters from prison, ones that were archived and kind of hidden. There's a lot of different layers within this photo book, and there is text, but it's not. It's there's a fantastic designer in Amsterdam working on it, but I took a pause for like a year. I just wasn't in a headspace to create, so that was it. This year was supposed to be finishing this book,
Mm.
Birds Unaccustomed to Gravity. This year was, I should have been finishing up my letters, my applications for the grads, for the PhD program. That's what I was
Right.
supposed to be doing. I October 7th came, and yeah, it bit everyone. It was one of the most jarring and horrific, and I think narratively what that weekend meant and brought. Yeah, and I don't think people have figured out how to talk about it yet,
Mm.
because it's a people because that was a horrific weekend. It was something horrific that happened, and there are those that I've interviewed that have said, you know, this is going to be controversial. I'm quoting someone.
Hmm.
They said, for the first time in the history of this land, not referencing previous pain and horrors in Europe, but for the first time in the history of this land, there was a moral high ground in that what happened, that the things that happened in those that October 7th and 8th. But the problem is that almost immediately, that launching into Gaza, just what happened is just this, and then it just kept it's escalating and escalating. And I think that there are people that I interview who
Mm.
they're they're in just brutal shock. I have never seen this place so depressed, so, and it's dire, and other than and there's a lot of pain all around, and I don't think
Yeah.
people are able to talk about that pain and this pain, and that's sad, but that's where we're at right now. I think social media is never been more toxic and never been less of a space to discuss things. And journalism, I mean, that has been, that the first few days I was assigned to NPR, and I went to
Hmm.
the kibbutz, and I saw firsthand, um, and I had, for the first time in my life, little bit of a hate campaign from people that I've been, not from directly, it was more people in diaspora, but
Hmm.
rage that I covered those events, a sort of misunderstanding of what journalism was. And there was that. And then
Tell me
there's
about that. What do you mean there?
some really pointed, ugly comments saying that I had participated in a Zionist narrative simply by being on assignment for NPR, simply for having interviewed someone who had a relative that was taken hostage, for documenting Sderot, during that week, that the following week, when it was very tense and there were still, the Iron Dome was, in full effect,
Hmm.
and what it was a ghost town. Um, yeah, and I I was a bit baffled because there was no, it was visually, journalistically sound, and I
Mhm.
was disappointed, but it was so intense and and quick. There was no time for, and then there were, but then of course I went and I documented the spiraling. I mean, it's a consistent violence in the West Bank, that
Mhm.
brutal system, but it's something else. It's on cocaine speed right now,
Mhm.
for a million reasons we could go into. And I was working on a deep dive with the New Yorker on that, which hopefully will come out soon. And so that also took a lot of. So you were in this kibbutz and you've witnessed that the immediate aftermath, but then you're like immediately jumping into, um, Palestinian farmers being shot, uh, simply for their olive harvest, and then you're jumping into these realities. Like I walked up to a group of kids right at the gate of the settlement, and they were enacting, they were like, building something, and playing with a shovel, and they were singing a song as I walked up, and they were really cute. They were wearing the kippas, and they had, and they were like, singing a song, and I didn't know what
Mhm.
they were singing, but they came and one of them hugged me and they were singing to me because they wouldn't imagine that I'm Arab, that I have Palestinian kids. They wouldn't imagine that, looking at
Mhm.
me. And I asked my colleague, I said, "What are they saying?" They were singing "Death to Arabs." These really small children, like
Oh my
7 years
God.
old, you know. And that's not the worst of what I've been hearing, and it's just like it's almost been like anthropology has sort of saved me because it's allowed
Mhm.
me not only to code switch, and I suspect you are someone that knows and has needed to code switch too, and I think that's an important
I
trait.
dabble. I
And
dabble. I've been known
you
to
done.
participate occasionally. Yeah, you know.
So yeah, the anthropology is how to stay sane because you're in these
Mhm.
very surreal conversations and you're listening to people and their pain and their inability to see other people's pain, and you're just, yeah.
Yeah. And anthropology here. Sometimes I wish just in English we would have figured out a better way to go than like just being fancy and use all these Latin phrases and stuff like that. This is why I like other languages because they're just so much more direct. Anthropology, it's just like the study of people, just human study. Anthropos, the people, ology study. You're just studying people. That's it. Human beings. Why do they do what they're doing? That's basically it. But no, I agree. I've definitely been in that, in that thing where there's so much, or that mindset where there's so much ugliness all around you in the past and in the present. And really the only way to even get through it is to attempt at least to remove yourself a little bit and try to understand why they would do that. I mean, I cannot imagine walking up and seeing some cute kids singing, waving to you, and you find out they're singing about you dying. That's I hope nobody's ever in that position, ever. But I've certainly not been in that, and I can't imagine what that would be like.
It
Jeez.
just broke my heart for the kids. It
Yeah.
broke my heart for the kids as well, like it was telling, but that's, and then, that and journalists, like, it has not been, it's a game changer
Mm,
what's going on with, settler violence. It's unfettered. It feels intentional. It's definitely moving into a different direction. As well as the way soldiers have been treating, journalists,
mm,
foreign journalists, usually, being, white passing, and you can move. I mean, in general, at checkpoints, I have a technique. I put on Western music when I can. I show skin, but if I'm not, I'm in my journo clothes right now. But I put my music on and I sort of purse my lips and I look entitled. I have a facial expression that I've perfected, bored and entitled. And you don't look at them because if you look at them, you're doubting. You don't, you're not entitled. So
right.
I just look, be careful because that could backfire. So and my periphery is in case they wave, no one wants to get shot, but that works. I pass. So
Mm,
other than I was shot in the thigh once, and shortly right beside me, an elderly man was shot in the eye by a rubber bullet. But in general, I can move in the West Bank, could move. But the other day in an olive grove, while investigating a spot where a settler had shot a very simple farmer, a man who was just harvesting olives, we were trying to find the tree where it had happened, and we were
Mhm.
looking at the video, and we were walking in this olive grove, and then suddenly this light came on because it was right around dusk, and this light came on from the settlement very ominously, and I thought, we better get out of here, you know? And we
Mm.
turned back and we were walking, and there had been Palestinians we'd chatted with that were sort of quietly picking olives on the side, thinking they'd be safe at dusk and on the side.
Yeah.
And I heard screaming in Hebrew, and I look up, and there's three soldiers up above us, and they're screaming, they're angry. And so I immediately say, English, American journalist, and they're still screaming, and I repeat it. And then they switched to English and said, put your cameras down. And I immediately, like, I didn't, I wasn't here to get shot again. I just immediately listened. But despite that, as I'm putting the cameras down carefully and slowly, they cocked their guns twice. And I had never had that happen
Wow.
in any of the countries I've worked in the greater region. And I put my hands up, he put his hands up, and then they screamed at the Palestinian harvesters to put their hands up, and we were all there standing with our hands up. And they said, "Come up." And I said, "Can I pick up my cameras?" They said, "Yeah, yeah." And as we're walking, one of the Palestinians whispered to me, "Don't speak Arabic." I was like, "Thanks," obviously. But then he was like, he broke my heart. He said, "Please don't leave us." I said, "Of course not," you know? And we got to the top, and they checked his passport, and they let him go. And then they asked for my passport. My passport says it's American, but it says born in Jordan. In this state, normally I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but in this state, I'm like, I don't know. So I
Mm.
showed my press card, and he was like, "Oh, but where's your passport?" I just said, "Oh, this is. I thought this is all I needed." And then I started joking, and where are you from? Where are you from? Texas. I'm from Texas, and I just started like making jokes, and then he calmed down, and then he started to turn towards the Palestinians, and I said, "Yo, they weren't with us. They weren't with us." He goes, "I know." I go, "No, no, but they were." And he interrupted me, and he goes, "I know, olive shit." And then I tried to speak again, and he goes, "Don't worry, I'm not going to shoot them." And it was just so it's a particular time here. It's guns in Israel, civilians. There have never been more guns. We were interviewing
Yeah, I want I
a
want I
guy.
want to I want to back up just real quick, just to really sit that one moment there. One of these people told you, "Hey, don't speak Arabic because that you will be safer like that." So recognizing that, hey, you have a get out of this situation free card. Please use it for your own benefit. Also, in the same breath, please don't leave us because if an entitled outsider is not watching, we don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Man, just this, even just the order in which you're describing it. I mean, an understanding on their part, right? That, hey, you're one of us, but you can get out of here, and if you can, I'd like you to. I hope that you'll also help, but if you can't, I get it. Get out of here though. Get out of this situation. I can't. I can't pretend that I'm not from here. You can. That's,
That's the privilege. That's the privilege.
man. But just even that somebody would ask you for on your own on your own for your own well-being, please use that. I'd like to see you get out of here. That is heavy. And there's I mean I imagine there's got to be a lot of moments like that has to be, one after the other. But yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, I was no, it's good because when I get started, I'm like
No,
super
no, it's all
ADHD.
good. I want to be extra real here. I don't want to get in a situation where we're where we come off as, or we do start saying things like, "Oh my gosh, it's so hard being a journalist. It's so hard being a journalist." It is. It's also hard working at the grocery store in a war zone. You know what I mean? It's also hard raising your kids. It's also hard being a kid. All these other things. All these things are difficult. We're familiar with the ways that we experience difficult situations, right? We also happen to have microphones and cameras and stuff like that. And so when a journalist is feeling down about something, you tend to hear from us before you hear from the person who delivers eggs or who delivers the mail or who makes sure that the cell phone towers are working. You know what I mean? So let's set the table there and just make sure that everybody understands that um, you're covering. You were saying that you got some people pretty angry with you on some things you were covering, and I assume people who very much appreciated past work that you've done. Um, and people in diaspora, right, saying, "Hey, you're contributing to a Zionist narrative," that kind of thing. This is where I think a lot of this stuff can get difficult. And you said, and it's interesting to hear you say that social media has never been more toxic. It's impossible to have a conversation on social media, because this is precisely what I think everybody says this. This is maybe the one thing that anybody agrees on, is that, oh, social media, nobody's listening to each other, kind of thing. And that itself gets frustrating. That there's, just kind of throwing your hands up. We can't do anything. Nothing can be done here. And I hesitate to use this phrase, but you have covered, very hesitant on this phrase, but both sides. Very hesitant. Please recognize that I'm being very hesitant with this phrasing. Very hesitant with this
Yeah,
phrasing. Um,
yeah.
but if we are to divide it down the middle, which it's not, somebody said in the comments very, very astutely here that there is a lot of gray in this area, right? You would know this much better than I do. That it can be difficult to recognize a reality. And I think this is something that I think certainly some populations have had much, much more difficult than others, right? Getting other people to recognize their reality. Hey, this is the reality we've been living in for decades and decades and generations, right? But, you as somebody who you're an anthropologist, you study people. What has it been like for you truly having to listen to anybody you talk to? You're walking up and you're seeing kids, cute little kids singing "Death to Arabs." You don't realize that until somebody translates it for you. At some point, you're gonna have to talk to maybe that kid's parent, maybe not specifically that kid's parent, but people like that who you're gonna need to ask them questions. Maybe they feel like that. You're gonna need to ask everybody questions. What is it like for you going into spaces that may be very friendly to you or maybe very hostile to you, and you have to ask them, why do you feel the way you feel? What have you experienced? What is that like?
I think that's why I reference the anthropology, because it's almost like a mantra of sanity.
Mm,
Because if I, I even say, I say, I give advice to people that are like, oh, I'm coming into the airport. I usually get hassled, or I'm coming into the bridge the first time. And I always say, hey, anthropology mode. And
mm,
it's kind of like a protective mode where there may be ugly things that are being said or happening. But if you just switch it to trying to understand, okay, this is what they're saying. Why are they saying it? Is there an intent? Is there a methodology? What's behind it? And you just, and then once you go down that line of questioning, it kind of gives you a bit of grounding in that moment, because at least
mm.
you're thinking and you're using a part of your brain, and it's not just, you're not just experiencing it. There's something that an agency that you have when
Yeah.
agency is taken away from you, say at a checkpoint, or when you're hearing something ugly. and fundamentally, something that is being said about, for example, the Palestinian population, it's, so I also simultaneously, when they're telling me about Palestinians being worse than trash Palestinians, like just the things that I've been hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking about my own kids, but I'm also in that moment like thinking, wow, if they met my children, if they knew these children, and I'm trying to like understand.
Right.
No delusions that I'm going to change anything, but it's just like there's a bit of agency when you're in that anthropological mode. And
Yeah.
I also want to say that I understand how privileged I am to be. Again, I also cringe at the both sides,
Yeah.
but I also, Palestinians
And
in
please, and
Jordan,
please, anybody who's listening, note that both of us, when we say both sides, we're doing huge, massive air quotes. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of this. Yeah.
biggest, um, I also think about the fact how painful it must be, and that futility of pain. And you're just watching, you know, I've never been in Gaza during the four previous brutal, this what's happening now is on a whole other scale, but
Mm.
I've been the person sitting and sharing and scrolling the images of what's happening in Gaza. I understand the futility and pain of just consuming this on social media and not having, and again, privilege, not being able to, the agency to cover your own story. West Bankers being unable to leave their cities now more than ever. At least
Yeah.
before, before the war, Palestinians could cover other cities. Now, really, most of the cities are under lockdown. The checkpoints are insane at this point. But then let's not even talk about the Palestinians in Jordan or in Lebanon who can't narrate their own reality, the journalists who can't tell their stories.
Yeah.
So it's also a privilege of, and again, that word, but yeah, to be able to be here, it's important what you do with that privilege, in the sense of, yeah, I'm rambling a bit. You get me,
No,
I
no, I
think.
get it. I get it. I wanna I wanna even take a step over, and you were talking about the book that you were working on. And so I mean it's incredible that you had taken some time and you said, okay, September, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna get to work on this. I want to slide over a little bit. Can we get a little bit of a preview of this work that you were doing, the birds unaccustomed to gravity? Can we take a look at it? Yes,
Sure.
please. Okay, great. So I'm gonna pull this up again for anybody, you know, who's listening, because I know some people will mostly listen to this, and of course that's totally cool. But let me. Oh, why is it doing that? Okay, I don't know why it's doing that. That's fine though. Okay, anyway. So, by the way,
It's too bad.
first,
That's my favorite image from the series.
what'd you say?
But that's my favorite image from the series. But I don't know. Okay, it's a
It
little bit better.
is it okay? Yeah. Well, tell me about it. What am I seeing here?
So this is Beta, which is a Palestinian village close to Nablus, and it was really in the media in the last few years because they started a resistance model, uh, Night of Confusion, and what they would do, because there were already settlements nearby, but settlers were making another land grab and coming very, very close, and also misappropriating more land.
Hmm.
And so they would get lasers that are like, and cheapy lasers that you would maybe use for a presentation or whatever, but at
Yeah.
night it was quite effective, and they would flash it towards the settlers, and then simultaneously they would have like crazy, like it would be music or the Quran, and it would be blasting music. And so it was this movement of protecting their land. And what they would talk about as well is, other than protecting our land, we're also protecting our lives, because several years before there had been in a village not far away in Duma,
Hmm.
there had been a settler on the house closest to the street that had come and lit the house on fire, and an infant died and two parents died, and the only
Oh
survivor
gosh.
was a 3-year-old. So they said, we are already going through the checkpoints and dealing with all of that, but they were afraid of that proximity of these sort of things happening. And so this image for me embodies, first of all, fallahi is like the Arabic word for farmer. So
Hmm.
it's like fallahi Star Wars. I just love this image because, there's just, there they are nobly but it's a couple of lasers, and
Yeah, the
so
little laser
yeah.
pointers, yeah, like you said, that you use for a presentation or something like that. Dollar laser pointers, and they're just shining off in the distance. You can't tell what they're doing, but yeah, no. Now that you mention it, it kind of does look like Star Wars. But knowing, I guess, would somebody who's familiar with the situation, because I have no idea what they're doing, would somebody who's familiar with it, would they know exactly what this is?
Yeah, I believe they would. They
Really?
should. Uh, it was, Muhammad Al-Kur did an amazing article on this.
Mm,
I think it was in the Nation. It was actually a well covered phenomenon because it briefly worked. So actually, it worked to some degree. The settlers retreated from the land grab, but
mhm,
then the army came in because we could unpack their reasoning for that. I don't think they wanted to encourage such, but it was kind of there was a lot of kids. There were deaths. There were kids that lost eyes. There were kids that lost. They suffered for this
yeah.
resistance, but it was seen as a bit of a victory, because there was a retreat. Yeah. So that's the thing. That's where I'm playing. I'm trying to play in these metaphors and just
Mm,
a wide story, trying to sort of frame it down to a Raymond Carver punch, in a single frame. That's what I'm
mhm,
trying to do. A lot of these
yeah.
images. I mean, there's going to be context and text and yeah,
Okay.
in the book.
Wow. Yeah. See, looking at this, I would have absolutely no idea. I'd see a couple OGs shining some lasers off into the distance. There's a little bit of smoke. I have no idea that this is some kind of, this is part of a resistance that's being essentially fought with laser pointers and music, which is kind of incredible. I mean, look, this is art. Is there another one you want to look at?
This is a refugee camp in
Mm,
Bethlehem, and it's a trick of the eye. There was a study some years ago, I believe it was Berkeley, that said that the most tear gas civilian population on earth is in Ida refugee camp, which happens to be in Bethlehem.
wow.
And this was so we did a deep dive. It was a project I was doing with Amnesty, and we were interviewing women who had had miscarriages as a result of the tear gas,
Hmm.
baby, babies who almost died, one that had been put into a drawer, an infant that had been put into a drawer because they were so desperate they didn't know what else to do. There was so much. The baby, they died, they thought it was dead for X amount of minutes, but then,
Hmm.
and now I got the baby is a 4-year old with asthma. So
Oh
anyway, I was
gosh.
interviewing the woman. There's a woman, a mother behind this beautiful girl, and she initially
Oh.
didn't want to be photographed. And I told her, yeah, that's okay. I just want to hear your story. And as she described, she was pregnant here as well. She was taking
Hmm.
another chance. She lost two children from miscarriages. And her story was so intense, and we connected at the point. And I just said, I would love to illustrate your story in any way, but it's okay if you don't want to. And I said, one way is, and she was like, yeah, because I was taking it. And that's how the girl sat on her mother's lap to obscure her mother's face and protect her identity for.
Wow.
And if you go, yeah, if somebody really wanted to find out, they could ask who the girl is, et cetera, et cetera. But that's what the mother just didn't want to show her face.
Mm.
And so,
Did she say
and
why?
another step, usually it can be a mix of things. It can be a sense of propriety,
Mm.
privacy. Um, this can happen a lot in our region. And in some cases, there is an idea that children that there's too many children to track down, that there's some sense of like the children and these communities are the most precious thing, but at the same time, quite often most of the time they're okay with the children being photographed. So
Mm.
there's probably, but one step further is she described the previous child who had died. She felt very attached to it despite she miscarried. um, and she said, "Oh, the child is in this cemetery," and they told me that she's in the most beautiful spot with a tree. And so we
Mm.
decided to go to the cemetery, and we asked her father, the mother's father, the grandfather of this little girl, where can you describe where in the cemetery? And we found the stone.
Wow.
There was no tree. There was no tree, and it was just there were no trees. It was just a sad little plot of land. There's no space for Palestinians, let alone the graveyards, of a refugee camp. That was a bit sad, but I think they had told her that to protect, to give her ease. We obviously didn't relay back to her what happened,
Oh,
what we found.
oh my gosh. I mean, it's beautiful and alternately sad. I'm not, maybe both, I guess. I guess it has to be both. Wow. We haven't made it hardly anywhere through these pictures, and this is this is already almost too much. I'm gonna click. I'm gonna click right one more time. I don't want to keep you too long because I know there's one specific thing we want to talk about. But let's look at maybe one more. Okay, see, I already can't go. What is this? I
Let's,
okay. I will tell you what I see, and then you will tell me.
okay.
You will tell me what's actually happening in here. I think maybe that's the best way to do this. So what I see is on a on a dirty, it looks like the side of the road. I see a bunch of trash all around, and I see a kind of tall rectangular cage with what looks like maybe about 10 really brightly colored green birds inside. Almost look like parrots. I don't know what species they are. Very small parrot kind of tropical looking birds. Um, and but there's nobody around. It's just a close up of the cage. Other than that, I have no idea what I'm looking at. What am I looking at here?
That probably, yeah, you were scrolling, and that's what I probably wouldn't have pulled that one up, but it was next, and it's exactly, yeah. I'm also not sure of the species. I thought it was a parrot type species, but
Mm-hmm.
it's birds are really beloved. There's cats and birds. You've got a lot of people in Palestine and the West Bank that will have often lovebirds or
Mm-hmm.
canaries. And so this is they were being sold, and it's right. It's in a refugee camp in Nablus, and we were there. We met some militants for a news story, and there had
Mm-hmm.
been a lot of death in the camp, a lot of military incursions that week, and so it was walking out, and just again, just sometimes the light was hitting the birds perfectly, and it was
Mm-hmm.
just kind of a metaphor. You need those quiet images to move between the heavy stories, the quiet ones that you don't speak a lot about. So that's what that was.
Yeah, I mean, bunch of really bright, vibrant beings inside of a cage. I mean, you can kind of take that wherever you want to take it, right? Um, yeah,
Okay.
without the
God, I wish
context, I wouldn't think about it. What'd you
that's
say?
that what you just said was perfect.
Let me know if you need an extra editor on your book. Let me know. I'm free too. I'm a freelancer right now as well, so we could talk. But jokes aside, thank you so much for letting us see a little bit of that. Um, but I wanted, so I suppose we could do a couple of things here. I know you sent over an article. That's a past one. We could definitely take a look at that. But I also want to take a look at the reason that created the catalyst for you and I to talk, which is this letter. What would you like to do? Because I know time is, it's also getting late too over there. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's 8:30, but yeah, it's not late, but stuff to do, and yeah, and I don't want to make it about me, because I think right now it should be about this letter and about our comrades, our colleagues
let's do
that
it.
are dying. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at this letter here. So the reason that you and I uh, came into contact, we were able to speak, is I heard about this letter going around, and it's it was titled "For Our Colleagues," and it's a very short letter. So let's read it. I don't know. So I'll read the first one. Here we go. um, so as members of the international journalism community, we call for an end to the killing of journalists and any threats to the media covering the Israeli bombardment in Gaza and Lebanon and the escalating violence in the region. We call for the protection of all of our colleagues by all parties. It's probably important phrasing there. I keep going. You want to do it? Up to you.
You know what I'd like you to do? It's interesting to hear it
Really?
read by someone else. Yeah,
Okay.
please.
Yeah. Okay, so next paragraph. And this is a short one. Um, the past 8 weeks have been the deadliest for our colleagues since the Committee to Protect Journalists began gathering data 30 years ago. As of December 8th, which is today, 4 days ago, at least 63 journalists have been killed. 56 in Gaza, 4 in Israel, and 3 in Lebanon. That's an average of 1 journalist killed per day. Palestinian journalists reporting in Gaza are doing so amid carnage and destruction, exposing horrors that would otherwise remain invisible to the outside world. Journalists there have not only lost their homes and family members in the bombings, but also faced dire living conditions with limited food, water, and electricity due to a complete siege. Meanwhile, restricted access and communication blockouts have suppressed the flow of information. And there are links to a lot of the phrases in here for sourcing and all that. In Lebanon, journalists are not safe either. On one occasion, tank fire from Israel killed 1 journalist among a group of colleagues that were identifiable as press. On a second occasion, Israeli strikes killed 2 journalists. Israeli journalists are also working amidst personal loss and in a climate of worsening press freedom. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces arrested at least 19 journalists, mostly during raids on their homes, and harassed, assaulted, and detained scores. This must stop. Journalism plays an essential role in documenting history and serving the public interest by exposing realities too often obscured by disinformation and misinformation. Both of those words there. I think the distinction is important. Our reporting can reveal the true costs of war. We stand with all of our colleagues and condemn the killing of journalists. We remind all parties that attacks targeting civilians, including journalists, violate international law. We call on the international community to uphold freedom of the press and to protect the lives and safety of members of the media. We demand an end to the impunity in the killing of journalists, and we call for those found responsible to be held to account. And then the end of it, and it says, sign onto the statement. And there are, as of the time we're reading this, 1,828 people who've also signed. I think when I saw it, it was under 500, or it was right around there. 500, 800, something.
We're up to it. We check, we verify names, we check their Instagram, we make sure they're real. And so we don't actually, before you and I spoke, the number was up to 1,874. They haven't updated it yet. There's probably more. And we have so far 65 visual and media and art institutions
Okay.
signed it as well.
Yeah, because if you scroll down through this, I mean, if you go down pretty far, you start to see names, individuals' names. But if at the top, these are, institutions, these are organizations, the Coalition for Women in Journalism, Documentary Storytellers, Frontline Club, Frontline Freelance Mexico, Image Agency, Magnum Photos, places I'm not as familiar with, but I can recognize, okay, these are places. This isn't just an individual person. So I thought it was important to talk a bit about you, to know, okay, who are we speaking to? But now I'd love to get into, if we can, what was the genesis of writing this letter? And I imagine it must have been difficult to put together, because if you want so many people to sign, the wording has to be probably, I'm imagining, just so, just right. So what can you tell me about the process of this whole thing?
The irony is, an amazing German photographer had opened up an Instagram dialogue, and I'd never seen Instagram used in this way. And it was about AI. The conversation was about what they feared was problematic language that was being introduced on AI to the World Press Photo, which is a very important institution for visual storytellers, journalists. So people started to debate. I leaned into it. I looked. There were smart things that were being said. It wasn't just self-important. It wasn't just self-interest. There was some really interesting, and I followed it through. And in the end, this man managed to bring people together, have a conversation, make a list, turn it to World Press Photo, and within 24 hours, we have the director writing us and saying, "Thank you for reaching out to us. Thank you for informing us of these, and we stand with you. And they
Mm-hmm.
removed the problematic thing. And it was wonderful. But at the same time that this was happening, there were people that were in pain and outraged. How dare they talk about this and they haven't made a statement about Gaza? And
So
I thought,
y'all out here talking about AI and talking about the computers coming to take your jobs, and there's actually people dying. And you
yeah,
made a statement about one. And listen, we don't like the robots is any more than you do. But can we focus on the important things? Is that kind of the vibe?
yeah. So at the end, but again, there was just so much emotion and pain. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw in watching the very smart dialogues, I knew that there were allies in there. And I knew that there would be people to discuss this. So I waited till it was done. People were like, great. And then I said, hey, and it was a plaintive, exhausted, hey, can anyone, what if we use this energy and this amazing group that has come together? And what if we draft a letter about what's happening in Gaza right now, what's
Mm-hmm.
happening, and immediately, 3, 4, 5 people said yes, immediately, without it. Please, yes. I think
Mm-hmm.
everyone was sort of looking to think, what can we do?
Right.
And I put open WhatsApp link, and that was the origin. And then some people were more active than others, and so but that's initially how we came together. And the sad part is that the rage, the rage about the fact that there was a conversation around AI. And then, of course, we had a previous letter that was also, some would have seen, was toned down, but we had a stronger letter,
Mm-hmm.
the first version, which we were very careful to draft, because we looked at the letters that existed. A photographer I respect immensely, Palestinians from Gaza, who weighed in and said, look, at the end of the day, we need the borders to open up there. We need electricity. We need goods. We need international journalists and aid workers and everyone in to provide us cover. We need to stop dying. That's
Mm-hmm.
what we need. Because there was a lot of the um, issues of representation and very fair issues of, oh, when the foreigners go in, they'll quit hiring a lot of rage. Look at the amazing job they've been doing, and their jobs are going to be taken the minute that that foreign white Western journalists go in, and that's
Yeah.
fair, because that has happened again and again. But it was like,
Yeah.
guys, let's those issues we can address. We're getting momentum. We're making a community here, a concerned community. But right now we need to talk about, just people are dying daily, vast numbers, horrible numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we listened and we leaned into that. And then we decided that there were stronger letters out there, stronger words like genocide, etc. But we chose to use
Mm-hmm.
very journalistic language. And the first letter, we were gaining momentum, about 500 signatures. And then we got, I can't go into too many details, but we got word that some of the people, because anyone could have seen that had the link shared, could have seen who had signed.
Right.
And we got word that there were people who had signed that did not know that their jobs were at risk. And
Yeah.
that's what with that. The first thing we did was immediately take it off. We reached out to the people that in question, and we took it offline where no one could. And then we redrafted. We had a lot of conversations, because the other point
Mm-hmm.
that was brought from the journalist immensely I respect was, the Gazan and Palestinian journalist, was, listen, all of these points that are being made, we need the institutions. If we just have another letter, a photojournalist, it means nothing. We need
Mm-hmm.
institutions to lean in, to protect their own people, to discuss what's happening. That's what we need. And so we
Yeah.
leaned into that. And in doing so, if we wanted the institutions, we knew we had to use, and that's why it took us a long time to draft that second letter. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where we lost some people who felt the letter was too weak. But we also explained, draft another letter. There's many letters and many approaches that can be taken right now. But right now
Yeah.
we're leaning to our voices. What's our power? We are, well, if we call it power, but what stance do we have? What legs do we have to stand on? We're journalists. We're going to use journalistic language. And if this letter that's so simply worded, if institutions can't sign on and saying, hey, protect journalists, stop killing journalists, that's kind of insane, you know?
Yeah. So many things in there that I think we could talk about, right? I mean, I think there's three. One was, and this was something that I had noticed, of course, um, is that there's some words that aren't in there. There's some words that aren't in there that some people are very uncomfortable with, and the others would say, no, these are completely appropriate words to use, and if you don't use them, you're doing a disservice to explaining and describing what's happening, right? The phrase genocide does not show up in there. The phrase apartheid does not show up in there. There's so many other things that truly, I think for many, and I think for a lot of very reasonable people who I respect and would say, you're not calling this what it is. So what are you doing? Right? And on the other side, having to balance that with what is the point? You know, what is the point of this? Listen, I recognize that also. And by the way, it wasn't immediately clear, perhaps. Look, I'm on here. So let there be no misunderstanding about this. Like, I'm on here, okay? And so would I have written this differently? Sure, probably, which is weird to say from somebody who isn't over there and has never been there. I'd love to go someday. I'd love to go
My
safely
house,
also.
my house is your house, and that's a sincere invitation. Come, but please continue. Yes,
Stop it.
I mean it. Keep
I'm gonna
going,
take
sir,
you up
please.
on that. Don't play with me. Don't play with me. I'm gonna take you up on that. Thank you. I mean, also, not that you've never been to LA, but obviously, mutually. Shoot. All right, I'm about to pull up to Palestine. What's happening? All right, but anyway, but that all being said, you mentioned really wanting to get institutions, and you do have some institutions on here, but then you said, what is the importance of having institutions here? And maybe that plays into a little bit of the wording of the language here.
It does, and I want to address, but I also want to. There's everything that is in that letter
Mm-hmm.
is factual. It
Right.
might not be the strongest words, but it's factual. And if
Right.
we're working as journalists, and we're also, I also looked at this as an empowerment to journalists that at the end of the day, if you're a freelancer, freelancers again have more freedom. Though that being said, some of the behind the scenes was freelancers' jobs were at risk that were on the list.
Right.
But staff couldn't sign such a letter, even such a simple letter. Staff could not sign it for most Western papers. And I think a lot of people felt, or I know that a lot of people working within media have felt upset, have felt unable to comment, have not been free to do so, have been upset by certain, based on some conversations with some journalists, have been upset by editorial choices. And
Yeah.
there's there needs to be a fundamental culture of change in how this place is reported, and that's it. At the end of the day, it isn't. We were trying to find a way to allow journalists that felt shackled to speak,
Mm-hmm.
to question, and to come and show, like, look at this, look at these numbers. Look, we hope. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't want this just to be another, and I don't mean this in any negative way, but just what becomes a show of performance
Right.
online. I want it to be an impact. It needs to land. It needs to mean something. So we need, these numbers are nothing. We're still speaking in our bubble. We need to go bigger.
Yeah.
And
You
but the
you don't want
fact that
you don't want this to be another some more black boxes. You remember them black squares after they killed George Floyd? It's just, come on, man. Thank you, but what you doing with these black squares? I love how you immediately knew what I was talking about. Huh?
we talked about that. We
You talked about the
actually
black
referenced.
squares.
We talked about this. We don't want this. We talked about that. So at the end of the day, I am hoping, we are hoping that we can fundamentally make a change, because if it's such a simple worded letter that just says, hey, don't kill journalists. Journalists, that should be something any media org would be willing to sign. It shouldn't be problematic. And I think it's also been telling who hasn't signed some behind the scenes answers that we've gotten. But of course, we're not going to talk about publicly, but it's been very
Sure.
telling wouldn't sign. It's also been very telling how upset this letter that's certainly not the letter I would have written in my language. I can also tell you that.
Hmm.
But again, I was on strategy. I'm like, there's the other letters. I can sign those if I want to. We're doing a different. We're coming together as journalists. What can we do? What impact can we make? And again, the guidance came from someone I respect from someone I respect immensely, who knew what he was talking about. He'd covered 4 of these already in Gaza
Yeah.
with his family. So just to say that this letter that is so, some would say, anemic.
Mm.
I get it. It's one of those like journalistically written in a way that we were trying to make it so that nobody would poke holes, that there were no holes. We hyperlinked. The number of dead journalists are higher. Yeah. But we're referencing, and again, in trying to protect, to get institutional buy-in and to protect the journalists, we reference CPJ. We focused exclusively on CPJ, and CPJ takes a while to update the numbers. So,
And this is the Committee to Protect Journalists.
yes. So we've reached out to them. When are you updating next? And they are very thorough and they need to be thorough. Everybody needs to be thorough. So on my personal social media, I'm going to share information from journalists that I know in Gaza. But on this letter, because we're having to navigate a very different reality, that behind the scenes shit that we can't talk about. And so that the decision was, okay, we follow X and we'll update when they update. So there's a lot of thinking behind everything that's here. But this maybe even anemic letter, do you know how much hate we're getting from so much hate, like accusing, like misinformation, like that horrific, unethical, honest reporting article that came out that was accusing a journalist in Gaza of having embedded with Hamas. And then I respect the New York Times came out and made a very strong statement and stood beside some people, let people go. I can't verify this yet, but there's talk that one of the journalists that the Israeli government had said we're going after them after that honest reporting article. One of them.
Tell me about this, because this is I may be familiar with this, but maybe not everybody. Can you break this down for me a little bit? Because I've seen the comments.
Honest reporting is a very problematic journalistic outfit. I put journalist in air quotes, and they will go after any journalist, be they Palestinian or Western, who writes something that catches the eye or that they don't like when reporting issues, whether it's occupation, Gaza, anything. And so they came out with the statement and they had names, and they said these Palestinian photographers from Gaza embedded with Hamas participate. There was like very inflammatory accusations. And immediately there were statements from people within the Israeli government. These people have put themselves on the list. These people are, accusing them of being terrorists, which is incredibly dangerous. And I respected the New York Times. They came out with a letter immediately saying these journalists did what journalists do, which is follow things that, and they stood beside their journalists, the freelancer that they work with. And that was incredibly powerful and important. And there's a lot of information that has come out. Rafif, that was just killed, a renowned poet, journalist, professor, and there were fears that it was targeted. And this, I'm not saying I haven't verified it yet because I've been running and doing other journalism, but there's talk that one of the journalists that was accused in that honest reporting article lost a family member, and they believe that it was targeted. So I'm not saying that's a fact. I haven't verified that yet, but I'm just saying there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and every decision and word that was in and not in, I can't express to you the sleepless nights that we had. And but that's the greater strategy. There's stronger letters that you can sign them, but why not sign this intervention? Why not this one? Why attack allies? Why turn I'm not going to quote her right now because I don't want to. She's caring enough. But she's a Palestinian academic I respect immensely, and she was saying that this very outspoken, brilliant, that she gets attacked consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you? She said, yes, me. I get attacked for speaking to Western media. I get attacked for one state solution. I get attacked for, she's like, there's nothing. She's like, and her take on it was, we are wounded. We are wounded. We are sick. She doesn't mean it as an insult, not sick mentally, but just we are a wounded, fractured community, and we don't know how to yield our pain and that's why what I don't understand is why anyone would, you might not like the wording, but it's not, it's it's a very strategic, sound initiative of many, and I as I've said before, we need all the voices, all of the
Mm-hmm.
roles. So yeah, but I think it speaks to the climate of pain that we're in right now and the sense of futility. I just don't find it particularly strategic to be turning your energy on hating people that are coming together and trying to make an impact in the field that they can.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the stuff that you mentioned, the allegations that there are journalists who were essentially working with, Hamas, who are basically, oh, they're working with them. They're actually just terrorists. This is what's happening. And so calling for saying that journalists shouldn't be killed, you're actually being disingenuous because you're giving cover to people who are actually just terrorists. This is what you're doing. I've seen these comments, and those were some of the first comments that I was getting. And again, if I am getting these, if the black dude in LA is getting these, I don't know what the Arabs who are actually there get. Like, what? I don't want to know. I don't want to read your inbox. No offense. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't want to see that shit.
You don't want to read the inbox. It has been fascinating, and it was like, it's like, wow, like just equating the journalist to being terrorists. It has been, and people are debating, do we delete this? Do we engage? And it's like, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Leave it as a record, because these comments are so fucking insane. Leave it as a record that this anemic letter that was written in a very straight journalistic way that would empower and allow as many people to buy in as they could and stand together, and hopefully allow institutions to come forward and say, yes, protect our journalists. It's something, a letter that has pissed people off for not having words like genocide, but this letter has brought so much hate and irrational commentary equating the journalists in Gaza to being terrorists. It's insane. But leave that record online. Leave it.
Yeah, I mean, on one stage, on one hand, I can understand why an institution is hesitant to sign on to something that they didn't make themselves. You know what I mean? People just bureaucratic, and I've never been a fan of that ever, right? And I think the more the stodgier or whatever shall we say the institution, the more likely. I'd love to see, if it's not this, I would love to see, say, a New York Times, say an LA Times, right? I used to work at the LA Times. Say, one of those storied publications sign on to something akin to this, put out a statement, something akin to this, right? If it's got to be your own thing, do your own thing. I understand that, right? But it's as you said, basically every sentence. I mean, the sentences feels almost surgical, because all of them, like, there's a link to it. If you don't believe it, click the link. The numbers are accurate. I mean, I think one very important mention in here is the fact that you mentioned Israeli journalists are also working amongst personal loss, objective truth, and in a climate of worsening press freedom. These are things that are happening, right? And so nobody's being left out here also, which I think is a critical thing, because I think some people certainly would say, listen, man, what they're dealing with is not like what we're dealing with. Cool. Also true. However, if you want everybody able to sign this, I can fully understand why you'd say, listen, everybody's going through it. I mean, yeah, I don't want to make comparisons here. I think maybe comparisons aren't helpful here, but yeah, yeah, it's it's wild to see. Yeah. This is a good question actually. So somebody in the chat right now is asking a question. Beatmaster is asking, what would Vice Media have done with their employees that signed this letter? Was there any pressure when it comes to such things? That's a really good question. So I can't speak to what they would do now. I do think, were I still there, I don't think they would have done anything to me. I don't think so. Vice is a particular place. It's a very peculiar place. And I think we were all given from what my understanding was, we were all given very wide freedom of any sort of expression. I've never actually heard of anybody getting told that post you made, you can't make that or take that down. I've never heard of that. I'm not saying that never happened, but I've never heard of that. And I have personally gone on my own account and said things that I was thinking about, things happening all over the world. And nobody's ever told me don't do that. LA Times, that was a different story. And so I think different places I had a short version. I had an editor when I was there that would not let me use the word racist in an article. I just couldn't use the word. I think they said I could say like stereotypes or stereotypical, but I couldn't say racist. That person's not there anymore. I think they went on to I forget where they went. They went somewhere else. It doesn't matter. But that's to say that all these places are different. And I've seen places circulate. I can't remember who, so I can't name names, but circulate memos basically saying, "Hey, don't comment about this." And I've also seen people leave because they disagree with their employer. I dig that too. I understand. I understand that. I just kind of do whatever I want as a general rule. You touched on this, and this is a question that I had. Maybe somebody might not sign this because they don't feel like it goes far enough, or even that it goes too far, right? I could see that. If they truly believe it is supporting terrorists or something like that, this is going too far, whatever. Okay, fine, sure, don't sign it. I can understand that. Why might you alluded to this, but it sounds like you've seen or anticipated journalists who might want to sign this, but don't because they're concerned about their job security. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because this really does seem so benign. I mean, it really is saying, hey, don't kill journalists. It's not even say don't kill civilians in general, which I would want to, that's a letter I want to sign, right? Is, hey, leave the kids alone. I would love to sign that letter as well, but this doesn't even do that. Frankly, it doesn't even do that. It really just says, hey, the people in the blue vest, leave them alone.
Yeah.
Why might somebody not feel comfortable signing this?
I mean, well, there would be, and people I respect immensely, there are those Palestinian regional, Arabs from the region who don't feel it's strong enough, and they feel wounded because this is important. And actually, in the greater group, there were some people that's what I liked, is that there were points of where people expressed dissent and why, and people listened to one another. And one journalist said, as Palestinians, we are used to our erasure of our nuance, of key words that explain the nuance of what's happening. And that wound, and this particular journalist ended up signing it because she understood the strategy, but she was explaining why that was hard. And then there are those that, again, they don't feel that they don't feel that it is describing what is happening on the ground. That they would like to see the stronger words, and I understand that. Oh my God, I understand that. And people I respect who said, I can't sign that letter because that's not the language that I would use to describe this, and that's fine, and I understand it. And maybe that's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to sign it. I understand that. But what is hard, so there's those that they felt too erased, the letter didn't go strong enough,
Yeah.
and I don't think some of them fully understand the strategy that we're taking, and the fact that if a letter is benign is that isn't signed, or allowing those who felt shackled to speak about it. There's all kinds of, but it also, there's a lot of revelations, and who would sign, who wouldn't sign, why. And along with, to answer your question directly, I can't name names. I'm not at liberty to do so, but I can tell you that there have been people who were called in and told, you should take your name off of this,
Oh my gosh.
um, this benign letter.
As in people, and
This,
again, you don't have to name names, but people, not a freelancer who can kind of do whatever they want, but somebody who has a staff doing staff somewhere, like they're an employee.
I should mention that the first letter,
Hmm.
which was a little bit stronger,
Okay.
just a little bit, we were still playing with it. Those were freelancers that were okay, but
Okay.
there's somebody in question I'm thinking of is not a freelancer, but I'm sure there's people that aren't even speaking about it or that haven't signed it for that reason, that are freelancers. But it's the fact that there is nothing remotely. This is a journalistically sound letter, and
Hmm.
I don't understand why anyone could not, any institution. Although I will say, of course, some um, newspapers don't make any statements at all. They don't feel that
Hmm.
that's their role, and that's something we should also note, that there will be institutions, and that's not something that they would ever do,
Right.
whether it's for the Ukraine or otherwise. And we should note that. But
Hmm.
I also think it's very telling to see who is stepping forward. And yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I could talk more freely about
Oh
it, but
no,
I
no, it's all yeah. I
yeah.
understand that. I mean, B Master brought up a good question, which is, would an individual journalist, whether they're a freelancer or a staff member, be concerned that signing something like this would affect their employment, would affect their ability to get a job or keep a job?
100% for a majority. I think a lot of the people who signed that grappled with that when they signed it.
Yeah. Did you think about that writing this?
Yeah,
Really?
I did. But I also know I'm also pragmatic, and I've seen that right now, as a free living off of journalism as a freelancer is increasingly just not an option. So I believe, I always knew that I would put out a letter that was fair, and
Hmm.
I always knew that. I knew that, but I also have less to lose, because I think I had already come to the decision
Mm.
beforehand. I I love this. I love this field, and I think that's another reason that people are so angry. The ones who feel the letter didn't go far enough is they're also angry at Western media. They're livid. I actually had someone, because we were debating in a smaller group,
Yeah.
and I was trying to explain to the smaller group why, and I was answering why this word wasn't there and why this word wasn't there. Just people I respect immensely, and one was really angry, and I just said, you've never worked in media. I was starting to open up to explain, and she said, no, thank God. She said, I'm an ethical person. And it made me sad, but I think there's also a lot of outrage at how Western media has handled this. And I think that, but at the end of the day, when media hits right, when you push back, like you talked about how you couldn't say racism, which is insane. And if you just left, no, man, you've got to work that angle from the inside. That's insane that racism wasn't allowed here. You know what word gets omitted often?
Hmm.
Occupied.
Mm.
Occupied. There was a paper 10 years ago that I haven't worked with again. They took occupied out of my captions. And I was like, why would you do that? And they said, oh, our standard is West Bank. And I said, yeah, but that's not fact. I'm like, this is fact on the ground. This is international law. This is even the Israeli Supreme Court. So these decisions so you have to push back. So at the end of the day, we can just say, yeah, fuck you, fuck Western media. But I think there's changes. I mean, if you look at still has a far way to go, but look at the coverage of look at Black Lives Matter, look at police brutality. I remember I started to watch America from afar, anthropologically online, like analyzing media, having
Yeah.
lived there since, when did I leave the US? 2002.
Good.
I haven't, more than, you know, I came here. But there was, I remember when oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so tired. Florida, Trayvon Martin,
Trayvon Martin. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing that coverage and I remember getting a chill and I remember thinking there's something different happening here.
Yeah.
I couldn't articulate what it was. And then George Floyd and those words, I sobbed. I sobbed. I was angry, but I also immediately felt what was happening here and I saw that link. But I think that change, I don't, certainly it wasn't that there was police brutality against civilians uh, before, but I think that there was a change that was pushed partially. This is when social media is effective. I
Right.
think social media pushed that change. And
Mm-hmm.
now, if I'm not mistaken, almost every newsroom has someone covering that. It's like a beat, or there's certainly more resources to it if it's not a beat.
There's certainly more
And that,
resources to it. Yeah. It's definitely taken more seriously if you're not covering. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. But if you're not covering it, you're doing something wrong. And even for me, I think Trayvon Martin certainly was one big catalyst. Um, Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, right? And like you, actually, I was living outside the States at that time. I was in Japan, and I'm watching this online, and I'm watching it happening on social media first, and it's almost like social media, people on social media sort of forced the larger newsroom's hand into almost shaming them into not covering this. If you're not interacting with this, what are you doing? I don't think we're quite there yet. I don't think not quite there. I don't think we're nearly anywhere near there as far as Palestine. I don't think we're anywhere near that yet.
yeah,
I think it is in the I can only speak for the United States. I think it is entirely acceptable. It's socially acceptable to be unaware. Totally fine. Like if you're not up on it at all, um, if you can't find the places on a map, there's nothing socially wrong with that, right? I'm not speaking from my own opinion. I'm speaking from observation that this is okay, right? Whereas, we could of course make the argument of, well, what about understanding what's happening in Congo? Can you find Congo on a map? Can you find things like this? Sure. We can make these arguments as well. I just mean that I think in the past decade, it has become socially unacceptable to not have some understanding of Black Americans' interaction with police and how that so often goes wrong and why and the history behind that. And sure, yes, it is United States and Americans in general. I'm leaving you out of this because you're Texan, so you're a different category. But Americans in general are one of our hallmarks is being very uncreative and very uncurious, of like violently uncurious about the rest of the world. I think is one thing actually that we do better than almost anybody else. But that has become, yeah, it's become completely unacceptable, I think, for anybody, any professional journalist to not understand to some degree systemic racism, even if you don't use the word, understanding that it's not only just a one-on-one interaction with a cop, it is everything that comes before and after that and around it, and I think we're not nearly there. We're not nearly there with the Middle East. We feel very, very comfortable looking at it from a very, very, very American lens, which just
it's
doesn't
it's,
function.
it's interesting that you mentioned and Ferguson. I don't know if you probably know this, but there was a moment where there was this insane interaction on Twitter between
I know what you're
Palestinians.
talking about, but tell me about it. Yeah, run it back for me. Yes, I was watching that and I was losing my mind.
Yeah, Palestinians giving advice to people in the protests in Ferguson. Hey, yeah, tear gas, onions, Coca-Cola on the eyes. They were like reaching out and giving them advice about how to handle the tear gas and the attacks and the protest. And if you look on social media. Again, social media, and I'm going to come to another point about that. Social media has been incredible, and many and some of the most incredible support has come from the Black community in the U.S.
Mhm.
who have strong social media followings. There have been like comedians, artists, Sean King, and different individuals who have used their platforms to talk about Palestine.
Mhm.
And then that has been, but that conversation between Black Lives Matter and systemic racism in the US, I mean, there's always been a natural alliance, or I won't say alliance, but conversation. And that's been going on for a while. Simultaneously, back to social media. Social media, yeah, I think it played a role absolutely in pushing that conversation in
Yeah.
Western in Western publications, and how they well, not only how, but in some cases talked about it at all.
Right.
But I think, as you said, it's not moved the needle yet here. And I think that, which is hence having to use, that's another, I mean, it's also painful. The surgical, you said surgical, it was painful for almost everyone drafting words
Mhm.
that were taken out, words that needed to be added in. I don't think that the same restraint, narrative restraint, exists in the US as it does on this issue. And I think
Mm.
that that's one of the things that we've had, and it was hard. It's hard to swallow. And again, it's back to the issue of erasure of facts, of words like occupied that they're just facts, and how dangerous it is, and what kind of potential impunity when you try to create a gray where a gray doesn't exist. And that's
Yeah.
so yeah. There's that pain, but there's also been conversations about, we don't need people outraged that Taylor Swift was Times, person of the year. And then there's been like some really crazy, like different characters out of Gaza, but also Mu'taz, this, oh my God, this beautiful, beautiful photographer, 15 million followers.
Yeah.
And people have inserting his face inside the Time magazine, cover.
Yeah. I
And
saw
people
that.
saying, just livid, like, we don't need Western media. Fuck Western media. We don't need it. They're saying that we have social media now. Look at this person has 15 million. But social media also isn't there yet. There's been points where it's been successful, but points where it's just toxic. And until we have our own publications, yeah, we have a long way to go here in our region.
I think we all have. I think you certainly do. I think all of us truly have a long way to go. Um, I'm thirsty.
What's in that bottle?
This is actually water. This conversation isn't bad. It's bad. It's been rough, but not bad. It's been rough, but nah, we're not there yet. It's also early for me. I know it's 5 o'clock somewhere, as they say, but maybe I might throw a last couple questions to you. So as you've said, a lot of people have been concerned about signing this thing, which we fully understand. That. But what is your pitch to journalists to sign this, to organizations, maybe even more specifically, to sign this letter? What do you tell them? What would you tell them?
Damn it, you just dropped that heavy one on me. um, okay, I would say two different messages. I would say to photographers that to because it's not just photographers, to journalists, I would say these are our people. You know perfectly well what their job is, and while we all work, I think it's not easy, especially those that are covering social political issues. We've all had our moments where we've been endangered or stressed or harassed, but I don't think anyone can fathom what conditions our Gaza colleagues are going through, of what it is like. I've had one call me sometimes when the phones work, and
Mm.
sometimes just sit silently. We'd listen to birds. He just wanted just witness. He wanted someone. There'd be birds, and then you'd hear horrific guttural sounds of the bombs, and then the birds going crazy, and then his child cry. Another time he called me and calmly said, I think I'm going to die tonight. Will you promise? Will you promise to get my kids out? There's those personal relationships that people have, but then there's the ones that are online. The Al Jazeera correspondent whose children, oh, all but one child had been killed. And he went out and reported the next day. And as he stood with his microphone and then collapsed briefly, like, I don't think anyone can understand journalists that were still reporting while they're moving from location to location with their families, trying to hope that no one is getting bombed. People that didn't have water for days, that if they were lucky would have like a cap of water that they would share between seven, each family member getting, if they were lucky. There was a particular period where it was really hard to get water, getting a thimble, the top of a bottle, whatever you would call a
Yeah,
cap,
bottle
a
cap. Yeah.
bottle cap. I just don't think, I think this is unprecedented. This is unprecedented. And I think that as media, we should be concerned, all individuals, for that. And I think that, so, and I would say for the institutions, we've come a long way. There's a lot further to go, but there have been conversations and issues of representation and who
Mhm.
is getting hired. I think that we need to be fair, and we need to think about the fact that if you are an institution that is purporting to have a high standard of ethics, um, I can't think of anything more ethical than this.
Mm.
Then yeah, would I like to expand it to civilians? I'd like to, but fine, whatever. You've got your board, we've brought you a letter at its most basic form, and I can't understand how anyone wouldn't sign that.
And just the fact that there are people, again, to acknowledge that there are people who are concerned that if they sign this, it'll affect their job prospects or their job security in the present, which is it's wild to say, because again, if you read through it, somebody might not like you signing something that is an external, something from an external organization, but this really truly is asking for journalists to not be killed. It doesn't really go any further than that.
Like, I should also mention, if you recall the shooting in Vermont of the three Palestinians, two who are
Yes.
American dual nationals.
Mm-hmm.
One of those, I say children. He's a junior now at Brown, but I've seen him grow up since he was a child. He's the son of one of my best friends.
Oh my
So
gosh.
there was also, that was the other thing, is while all of this shit is going down and you've got colleagues and friends, and then you're also just watching like what ethically is happening, and then you're doing assignments and you're code switching, and then that was horrific. And I should say that the coverage of that, and in general, I would say that there are places that I respect immensely for an immediate, journalistically sound, so academics are behind it as well as journalists, and it's not propaganda. It's just, I would say, the IMEU. That's what it's on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
verified link. It's just THEIMEU.
Let's see.
702,000 followers. It is phenomenal, and I could not recommend that link enough. If you're not following Noura Erakat, man, that woman is fierce, and she's an ally. She's proven herself as an ally. Black Lives Matter, Black community,
Mm-hmm.
finding the spaces that the Palestinian injustice, injustice against Palestinians, injustice against Black and Brown America intersect. I can't recommend enough. Yeah, man, that is one of the best. Noura Erakat.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not following, you wanted some. Let's see. If you're not one of, I think I mentioned him earlier. Wow, he's up to 16.9 million. Motaz,
Yeah.
I actually never knew his last name. Or you're probably following him, but maybe some of you guys don't know. Follow
Yeah.
Motaz or Azaiza, Azaiza. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. But then there's also some amazing books and poetry. You gotta, to understand Palestine, you gotta go into the poetry. You gotta go into why this place is beautiful, not just
Mm-hmm.
define it on the screen, you know?
Yeah. I'm not going to give you extra homework because I gave you enough already, and I made you stick around with me for almost 2 hours. I think I've had you on here. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for being so.
You're amazing. You're an amazing host, and this has been actually incredibly healing for me to even articulate things that I hadn't thought about or hadn't said out loud. So thank you for inviting me and sharing the space.
That is so kind of you to say. But that does make me ask an extra question, which somebody just asked: is how are you? I want to do two things. I want to show. So this weirdly, I have like friends in super weird places. So this is a dude I've known forever. I wasn't even gonna do this, but I saw a friend post this. Um,
Depressed?
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a friend who I know him, man, from rap stuff, from like hip hop stuff, right? And this guy has gone on to be, if you've ever seen the images of grime MCs in the UK as royalty, this is
Yeah.
him. This is my this is my dude. Yeah, I know him from like forever ago. We used to talk online about music and stuff like that. This is my guy, and I got to interview him actually in 2015 when he started making the pictures of Stormzy and all these other dudes depicted as royalty, and he was really a pioneer in that. But he'll take things he moved on, not moved on, but he also has started to do things that if something is happening in the world, he'll make this image of it that just works. And sometimes it's immediate, sometimes it takes time. But he sent this, and I talked to him a little bit yesterday about it. And we were both just talking about, he's not a journalist himself. Although I would say some of the things he does are kind of, they describe current, events and culture in real time, you know. Um, also notice the comments are off because, as you said, it's really difficult to actually have a conversation about this stuff. But he no joke, he posted this yesterday, and I hit him and I said, "You have no idea about the timing of this, man, because this letter is about to drop tomorrow, and I'm about to have this conversation tomorrow. It's just the timing of it is wild." But that takes me though to another question is, I mean, I know you're in a different spot, but how are you dealing?
By the way, when I read depressed, I just like that was incredibly smart. Yeah. I uh I think that like the letter was just when you feel this sense of futility, like the
Mm-hmm.
letter that we worked on together, I think it just gave us a little, and again, I hope it's not diluted. I hope, like I said, that it lands, that this isn't just, my God, there's nothing I want more than it landing and meaning something. But I also think it gave us something to focus on and give us a sense of agency. But I cry all the time now. I cried this morning when I told you I was doing this sort of like political, spiritual, what does it mean? Because, in Solidarity, they canceled Christmas officially. Bethlehem canceled Christmas. So I
That
went
I'm
to
sorry.
a,
Let's back up. I'm sorry, man, for all the like Fox News talking about Christmas getting canceled. We can't have a white Santa Claus no more. Y'all got too woke. We canceling Christmas. You got to say Happy Holidays. They canceled Christmas in Bethlehem.
yes, because there's too, the strikes, which there was a strike yesterday. Strikes are common here. Like I can't tell you 4 or 5 times, sometimes 10 times a year. Kids' school is canceled tomorrow. There's been too many killed in the middle of the day. Come get your kids. School is canceled because it's like, and it's frustrating as a parent because you're like, fuck. First of all, you're worried about the interruption. I'm going to come back to Christmas. Trust me. I'm categorical.
Okay.
It makes sense, but you just got to roll with me. Uh, you know, it's frustrating as a parent. You're worried about the disruption to your kids' education, but then you also know, like, okay, status quo, which is already tenuous and horrible under occupation, it's not okay. It's not okay. We can't just go on with normalcy, and that's kind of when the strikes happen. Um, Christmas, in this case, people I've never felt that people are walking around like zombies. People that I know and love are just sitting and doom scrolling. And I mean, I've never seen. And so, Chris, you couldn't have, even though the economic, well, at the end of the day, there's no tourism, and at the end of the day, if there were tourists, they'd be stuck, they'd be trapped, they wouldn't know how to navigate in and out of Bethlehem right now. But
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, how do you have celebration? How do you have celebration when this is happening? And again, don't forget, there's a Christian Gaza community as well. Not to say that, but it's just, don't forget that even though they are forcibly separated and can't touch each other, you're talking about people that almost everybody either has a family member
Mm-hmm.
in Gaza or a friend. Like I said, my 12-year-old daughter's best friend had 9 family members die, killed. So you can't just go about life as normal. So they canceled Christmas. That's
Man.
that hasn't happened. And in fact, I'll have to look back in the intifadas. I can't say it's never happened, but it's certainly never happened since I've been living here. It's not something common. And this morning I went, so I've been working on the story for 2 days. What does it mean with the cancellation of Christmas, politically, emotionally, economically, right? So I
Yeah.
was trying to find characters to kind of, and I ended up in a convent this morning. And I
Oh.
just was too cold. I just kind of, in fact, nuns used to scare me. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. you know, this Argentinian nun just, first of all, I rang a doorbell. It's this giant convent at this convent, and the door opens, and it's this vast, peaceful, and this convent overlooked is right across from the Haitian refugee camp, which has been taking a lot of military incursions of late.
Yeah.
And I walk in, and this Argentinian nun comes out and hugs me and says, "Welcome." And I have my cameras. I'm like, and she's like, "Yeah." I didn't even need it. She goes, "Baba Noel, Baba Noel." That's Santa Claus. She's like, "Baba
Yeah.
Noel is inside right now." I'm like, "What?" And by chance, there was 3 people who decided they wanted to bring a little bit of joy to children, and they felt okay. They felt okay. This isn't. We're not disrespecting And they came and they did a performance to these kindergartners, and this convent. Not even 100% of the kids in this kindergarten are Muslim kids.
Yeah.
And I walk in, and there's Baba Noel. There's Santa Claus, and he's in a chair. He's feeling sick, and there's a clown, and there's a doctor. They're trying to cheer him up. And what's wrong, Santa? And he'd been sinful, or he'd felt sin, but he got better. And then they made a little comment about Gaza, and then they started dancing, and then the kids, these little kindergartners, started bopping up and down, and it was just so beautiful to see something beautiful and kind that I started weeping. That shit
Mm.
isn't normal. I'm not somebody that's going to weep in those situations, but I started weeping because it was
Mm-hmm.
just so kind and 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 beautiful. And then the nun was super interesting because I talked the Palestinians that I spoke to, the teachers, they all spoke about how their hearts were breaking and how there's no way that they could celebrate Christmas. But the nun listened. She didn't interrupt them. She just kind of nodded, and then she pulled me to the side and she was like, Christmas isn't canceled. And she was like, people need to think. She's like, the injustice from 2000 years ago. Jesus was in poverty, and Jesus ended up on by the way, I'm recounting what the nun said. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not religious.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, Jesus ended up on a cross. And she's like, the humanity inside of us is what matters. Christmas isn't canceled. We have to pray. We have to pray. We have to pray. And it was just like these kinds of conversations. It's yeah, I don't know. So how to stay okay? I'm not okay, but then you don't have the right not to be okay when you know that you're operating. I have water. I'm not getting bombed, so you can't really not be okay. But yeah.
I've I won't even endeavor to compare. Um, I can only say that I have occasionally had glimpses of that, you know, where I've been watching what's happening here. I'm thinking protests of 2020, and at the very least having some purpose, feeling like you can do something. Um, it at least kicks the can down the road. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of times that's what it is. And these are conversations I've had with with people who spent time there, who've covered it, who are covering it. It feels a lot of times like you're kicking the can down the road, and that's the reality. And I think even with social media, it's like I have friends who tell me that they open up, say, Motaz's feed and just cry. One of his got me, and it wasn't the really uh because the ones that are really frankly gruesome images. I think the one that got me was it was just this dad crying. And you don't see anything other than it's just he crying, and it's just this guy, and he's just crying, and I just completely lost it. You know, um, you know, Probably sitting on my couch or something like that. And yeah, how can you? And I'm feeling this, right? I'm feeling this. I'm in Los Angeles, man. I'm good, right? And I feel this. Like I think on the 8th or something like that. Early October, I had a DJ gig, and I'm like half there as I'm like playing rap music and thinking, what am I doing? Like, literally, actually, what am I doing? And I know some people also there felt the same ways. How can we possibly have fun right now? How can one have fun? And I suppose that never stops. And so again, if I'm feeling that here, I can only imagine what that experience is when you're there and you're constantly asking people about it, talking to them, you know, hey, what is your experience? Not only, not maybe not having time to, sit with your own experience, but, talking to a nun, going and seeing some kid, some Muslim kids, you know, watching the Santa Claus hopping around on a stage, I can only imagine that. But, it is something that we're all worried about, frankly. I can't slice it any other way. But yeah, but thank you for telling me about that. That's, like I
Thank you
said, I
for
can only
signing.
imagine.
Thank you
Um,
for signing the letter, even though, by the way, off topic, but thank you for signing the letter, even though you would have liked maybe to use stronger language. I appreciate that you saw what we're trying to do.
I mean, yeah, I looked at it for me. I appreciate you saying that. I don't think I did anything worth being thanked for, but I can tell you why I did. Um, if this is truly an industry in which signing something so benign affects my job prospects in the future, I want to be here. Now, I say that saying that I have a lot less to lose than a lot of other people. I don't have kids I got to feed. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay in that regard. And so I understand that some people do have more to lose than me, fully understood. But for me, the reasoning to sign is twofold. It's one, if this is something, I won't lie. I had that worry a little bit where, if I sign this, am I essentially putting myself on a do not hire list? Maybe. I would like to believe that no. I would like to have faith and optimism that no, that anybody who reads this thing and looks at it in good faith will realize, no, this dude's actually just saying that he agrees that people in blue vests shouldn't be getting killed. Basic, right? But then also I feel like if I can be number 501, or if I can be number 1001, or 2001 or whatever, if I can just add the extra little grain of sand, you know what I mean? Like, that's worth it. Um, there's a there's a Japanese phrase, like, even dust, if you add it together, that creates a mountain. It's bad translation. It sounds much better in Japanese. But like, even dust, if you add dust together, it creates a mountain, right? And so for me, you know what I mean? Like, I'm happy to be the extra piece of dust. I mean, thank you so much for being down to walk me through the process of creating this thing. Um, and, you know, being so open about it. And also, again, taking your time after sitting in a checkpoint for an hour. Just no. Not something I would want somebody to have to deal with. Yeah, anything else we should know before we let you get out of here?
No, just thank you and those who listened, and thank you for again being an amazing host and conversationalist. And I learned from you, and I might be hitting you up for an edit. You just have a way with words; it just rolls off. So I might be hitting you up. So, and you're freelancing like me, so let's see.
We all free. Hey, listen, man, this it's the wave. It's freelancing. Listen, I'm with it. But also, please, if there's ever anything you want to come on and talk about, I think, you know, everybody in chat, everybody in the audience right now is we're accustomed. We're used to you. You're part of the family now. So if you ever want to come back, no joke, and talk about future work, whether it's strictly journalistic or whether it's art type stuff, the book, please, when that's ready, please come back. Or also, for real, any friends you feel like that would be down to come on, you know?
Know who you want to talk to? You want to talk about some hip hop? You want to talk to Dabur or you want to talk to Shabajdeed? And one of the songs that a lot of people are telling me get them through the days these last 2 months is Dabur. It's actually a collab between Shabajdeed and Dabur and Anne. And just even if you don't understand the words, but you can find the translation online. You want to get those guys on.
I'm sorry, hold on. No, we got it. I know this track.
You do?
I
You do?
know. Because I recognize the video.
We got to get them on the show. We got to get the photographers in Gaza. You want help me connecting you with anyone? Let me know. I would love to bring, because I think people would just, I think it's just healing and intellectual here and here, being with you and your people. And I wish I wasn't reading comments. I don't know, but if you've got crew, they're good. I know just by listening to you. So yeah, if I can connect you with
Yo,
anyone.
I would love, I mean, no joke. That's one of those things. That's one of those things I want to do in person, but we should talk. I don't want to do
You're
that
coming
online.
over. I
I
gave
might.
you the invite and I meant it. So you're just gonna come over. You got a place to stay. Yalla. We're waiting.
Oh my gosh. If I could make an in-person thing happen with them, I would lose my mind.
I would like to tell you I'm cool enough to be the one to make that happen, but I'm not the one, but I know people who are, who can make
That's all that matters.
that
No. Clout by
I'm
association. Clout by association is all good. Yo, I'm going to preemptively end this because I'm getting way too excited, and I know you got to go to bed. I know you got to do things in the morning, but yo, thank you for real, for real. Thank you so much for coming through. Everyone, once again, thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you. Bye.
Easy.